Hey guys, it's Kemp, my review for One Night in Miami. So what One Night in Miami is essentially about is it basically tells a story of four of the most iconic and pretty much So what One Night in Miami is essentially about is basically it takes place in 1963, and we focus on four of the most influential black figures of that time. We have Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, or as he was known then as Cassius Clay, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke. And the film tells a story of what would have happened if those four characters would have met in this hotel in February 1964, and basically showcasing their different perspectives and maybe how it gets them to think differently and make a change within their lives. So One Night in Miami overall, I was very excited for this film. I mean, going all the way back to TIFF and all the buzz surrounding this film, this just really seemed like one of those last few late Oscar contenders that could really swing in there, really make a big impact on me in that way. I love the premise of it. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and I was very excited to see how this film would really turn out. It became one of the most anticipated films for a while, and I'm very happy that it has finally come out. I have finally seen it, and overall, this film very much lived up to the hype for me. I really love One Night in Miami a lot. I think it's a very insightful and honestly really important film to watch right now that I very recommend checking out for sure for a variety of reasons, and definitely deserves all the praise that it's gotten. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And when it comes to this film, I mean, that is definitely one of the big pushes to really watch this film, because I think if the cast was not as good as they really were here, I don't think this film would be as good. And the cast here is absolutely phenomenal. All four of these actors all deliver such amazing performances, but for me, the clear standout in this movie is Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Malcolm X. And here's the thing, I think that the Malcolm X role, it's been done before, by like Denzel Washington and things like that, but when you look at someone like Kingsley Ben-Adir, who prior to this I've only seen in like Noelle and things like that, I would not expect him to take on a role like this, but he absolutely blew me away here. He transforms into this performance in such an amazing way, not just because of the look, not just because of the dialect, but also the emotional complexity of Malcolm X, the frustration of his character. You understand where he is at all times because of how good Ben-Adir is as this character. You understand how passionate he is about what he's doing, but also how much he cares about other people and wants other people to, to stand with him in that way. He wants other people to understand his rationale, and I think Ben-Adir just does such a great job at playing this role. He really walks away with the entire film. I think if there's any actor to nominate here, it really is him. I think he just absolutely killed it in this role, and I just really loved what he ended up doing here. He commanded the screen in pretty much every single scene that he's in, and I just absolutely loved everything that he was doing. So Kingsley Ben-Adir definitely, I thought, gave such an incredible performance here. But the other big standout to me, I would say, is Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Sam Cooke, and this is easily, I think, one of his best performances yet, because while Odom Jr. has been giving great performances, he hasn't really had a role since Hamilton that's been able to showcase all of his talents, and Cooke really does get to do that because Sam Cooke is this very, popular celebrity. He is someone that is a great musician. Everyone seems to love him, but he also is very naive in that way, and Odom Jr. really does a great job at diving into this character very well. He's obviously very talented musically, but also emotionally. He has some really great material, and I really liked where they ended up going with him as a character. I think Odom Jr. just did such a great job at playing it here, and I just really loved his performance throughout this entire film. Definitely, I think one of the big standouts throughout this entire movie for me. The rest of the cast also just does such a great job, whether it's Eli Goree, who does such an incredible job transforming into Muhammad Ali, or Aldis Hodge as Jim Brown. Just every single one of these performances, like I said, they all are so well handled. They all are really transforming into these characters in such an amazing way, and I really just loved everything going on in terms of the acting here. they all just do such a great job of transforming into these characters. The chemistry between them, it just feels so natural and special, and it's one of the big high points of this film for sure. I think the film really is worth watching alone just to see these four characters interact, because it is just absolutely electric to watch, and they all are just at the top of their game in this film. But getting into the directing and the writing here, that is the other thing I think that really stands out when it comes to this film. The directing here, obviously, I think one of the biggest draws is Regina King. We know how talented she is as an actress. She's one of the best working today. She always gives a powerhouse performance in that way. But directing, I'm proud to say, she's also really good at. And I think she just does such a great job at directing this entire film. There is a confidence and a style to her that you forget you're watching a directorial debut in that way. I think she does a really good job at paying tribute to these four men and presenting what could have been a very likely scenario, and I really like the way that was done here. You can tell there was a lot of passion she put into this film, how much she cared about it. I was just so impressed by her directing overall, and I think it's one of the best parts of this entire movie is just seeing, again, just the confidence in her as a director, the places that she's willing to go in this movie. She does a really great job with it, and especially, again, for a film that is based off a play, it never feels that way. It never feels too showy. You know, I think King just did a really great job at translating this from stage to screen, and I really loved her directing here overall, and I think she very well could end up getting a Best Director nomination just because of how impressive of a directorial debut this really was from her. But the screenplay as well of this movie is, I think, easily one of the best elements of this entire film, because that's the other thing that really drew me into it, is just this scenario in general. You have these four black figures. All of them are very talented, but they're also all going through their own personal struggles, and you put them all together, there are just endless possibilities of what could really happen there. And thankfully, the script does a really good job, I think, of diving into every single one of these characters' struggles. They're all sort of going through the same thing. They're all in different, but they're also all in different places in their life. Whether it's someone like, say, Jim Brown, who is making the jump from being this very highly regarded NFL player to becoming more of a actor, and also trying to get people to take him seriously as an actor. So you see he's kind of dealing with that. Or you have Sam Cooke, who, like I said, is this very talented soul singer, but at the same time, he seems to only be attracting white audiences, and he's not really getting that love that he really wants to in that way. He feels like he's not living up to his potential. Or, of course, Malcolm X, who is so polarizing to so many people, but has a cause that he wants people to stand for, and has values that he wants people to stand for, and you can see just how passionate he is about that. Or you have, say, Cassius Clay, who is really just kind of in the middle of all of this. He is very conflicted as to where he stands at this point. He's not the Muhammad Ali that we know yet. This is a much younger Cassius Clay that is really just trying to figure out where he stands in all this. He's a very talented boxer, obviously, but he doesn't know where he is in terms of everyone's issue, everyone's feelings in this movie, everyone's sort of ideologies, and that's what makes this film, I think, so compelling, is that you're able to really understand where all of these characters are coming from. They all have different perspectives on this situation, and the thing I think that's so great about this movie is that every single one of these characters, they're able to just talk things out, which is something that we've kind of forgotten how to do in this day and age. And I think that that's something that is very refreshing to see. Just four characters not yell at each other, not just scream at each other, actually try to work things out, actually try to hear the different perspectives. And yes, things can get, dramatic. Things can get a bit ugly at some points. But again, every single one of the characters, they understand where the other is coming from, and I think that's what really works when it comes to this movie. And like I said, the film does a really good job of taking the time to flesh out all of these characters before they meet up, so when they do, we really do understand every single one of their perspectives in the movie. But the film doesn't get you there right away. For a while, it's just the four of them just having fun, casual conversations, bonding over their different popularities, maybe joking at certain things that they've done. But after a while, things start to become a lot more serious. And that's when this film becomes that much more compelling. Certain conversations just about the crowds that they draw or the girls that they're attracting suddenly starts to turn to much more serious conversations about, racial oppression and, certain limited opportunities that these characters have had or certain, racial threats that they've had within their lives. And all of those conversations are just really insightful to listen to. There's one especially involving this song that every single one of these characters have here, but they all have different perspectives on it. And I just found it so deeply fascinating because you would think that because the characters are in very similar places, they would feel the same way, but they don't. They all feel very differently. And you can also see, though, how throughout the film, their perspective starts to shift a bit. They start to realize where the other is coming from. They start to realize, what this really does to them. It has a significant impact on them as characters. And I think that's something that works really well in this film. They take events that did happen in real life to every single one of them and apply it to maybe this is how it happened. Maybe this is why they made that choice that they did. And I thought that was a really clever idea because obviously these are real people, but this specific meeting did not happen. How do you get around that? Well, you don't change anything about the characters. You just try to figure out why would they have made this choice like that, when they did. And I just thought it was really well handled in that way. All of the dialogue just feels so natural, and it really just, again, never feels like a play. You really are just so invested in all of the dialogue that's going on. I thought they just did such a great job in terms of the screenplay here. So much of the movie is just listening to the conversation, but it's such a riveting and open dialogue, and it's one that I think is very much worth watching. And one that I think is very easy to get invested in that way. Because again, you might feel a character is a certain way, but then as the movie goes on, you start to realize there's more going on with them in their lives. There's more that they're kind of dealing with. And I found that to be very interesting. The way the movie ended especially was just so moving and powerful. And it really made sense with what the film is really trying to do. The film isn't necessarily trying to take a stance here. It's not trying to say you must believe this, you must feel this way. It really is just trying to start an open dialogue in that way. It's trying to show that people can have different perspectives and they should be willing to listen to each other. But that's something that people just don't really want to do. It's kind of a lost art these days. And I think that's something that, again, is just super refreshing when it comes to this movie. And I think that alone is enough for reason to watch it for sure. Cinematography-wise, like I said, this film is excellent here. I think the film is so well crafted. You really do get that 60s feeling throughout the whole movie. I think costume design-wise, everything is really great. So much of the movie takes place just in this one hotel, but again, just the details and things like that, it's all very well fleshed out, and I think they overall did a very good job with that for sure. I think score-wise, there's not like a huge score throughout this movie, but the score that is provided here by Terrence Blanchard is really good. I really enjoyed his music throughout this entire movie. He did a very good job with it for sure. And the editing, I think this film is very well paced. I really didn't find myself getting bored with it at all. I was pretty much invested the entire time, and I think as the film goes along, it just kind of gets better and better, and I really love the way the film was edited here. So again, there's a lot of things I'm really loving about this movie. I think that it's very insightful. I think it's a film that very much is kind of timely in that way. Is there really anything to bring it down? Well, I do have a couple flaws here and there. I will say the first 20 minutes of this movie I found to be a little bit slow. I understood why we needed it, but it did take a little while to fully invest in everything that's going on. Once these characters meet, I think that's when the film really does take off, and I think it does get really good, but I can see others sort of checking out of the first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, just because, again, it is a little slow in that way, and I think the film could have done a better job with that. I also felt there were some sections that could have been a little bit longer. There were some things I would have liked to dive into just a little bit more. Specifically when it comes to Jim Brown as a character, I would have liked to see a little bit more of his personal struggle. We do, but I feel like they could have done just a little bit more with him. The film is very focused on the Malcolm X and Sam Cooke conflict, and I would have liked to see a little bit more going on with his character. But really, other than that, there really isn't too much to complain about when it comes to One Night in Miami. I think, once again, for a film that is based off a play, it feels very theatrical in that way. It has some truly amazing performances from the entire cast, one of the best ensembles that you will see in a while for sure. It has a bunch of very popular figures that you do know, but it puts them in a setting that could be very likely and gets to see them have an open and honest dialogue, and I think that's something that is really well done. There's a lot of timely issues, there's a lot of great moments here, and just overall, it's really what you want to see in this kind of film. It has an excellent directorial debut from Regina King, and just overall was a film that very much did impress me. I really enjoyed One Night in Miami a lot, and I am going to give it an A-. But over, guys, to my review of One Night in Miami. Let me know what you guys saw this movie. I'll lift your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.